This video is called Girlfriend or ATM, and it answers one question a lot of Western men in Asia are afraid to ask. Am I actually being chosen, or am I being managed? Most men think the difference is her intentions. It isn't. It's structure. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you the exact moment relationships here slide from romance into transaction. Look, Filipina alert. Hey. It usually happens right after the honeymoon glow fades, often around 3 months. Not because she's greedy, not because she planned it, but because you misunderstood how attraction is triggered in a high context culture. If you feel like you're paying to keep the peace, you're not a partner. You're a contingency plan. Here's how it starts. You land, jet-lagged, a little stiff, and suddenly you're noticed. Women smile. They listen. Someone calls you Pogey. You laugh it off, but something inside you wakes up, and this is where the mistake begins. You assume to keep this feeling, I need to provide. So you lead with fixing, helping, solving. You think you're proving value, but what you actually are doing is training the relationship to see you as a solution, not a man. You know, I was watching one of my favorite YouTube channels called The Conversation with a CEO, and the guest was Dr. Orion Taraban, a noted PhD psychologist, and he says, or he has this thing, attraction proxy. It's like bottle service at a nightclub. Bottle service gets attention. It creates a crowd. It does not create desire. Money can open the door, but it does not keep you in the room. The issue isn't that you have money. The issue is that you don't yet have structure. Without structure, money becomes leverage. With structure, money becomes support. And the difference between being her man and becoming her fallback is almost never how much you spend. It's how you lead. Because the moment the fantasy ends, the moment real life shows up, your reaction decides everything. That's where men either stay chosen or quietly turn into the one who pays. And once you see that moment clearly, you can't unsee it. Now, we need to talk about the moment every man hopes won't come, but always does. This is the part nobody puts in thumbnails, nobody brags about, nobody prepares you for. Dr. Orion Taraban calls it the crisis of disappointment. And if you don't understand this moment, you will misread it. You will overreact. And you will either blow up the relationship or slowly bleed out inside. Here's how it usually starts. You've been talking for weeks, sometimes months. Good mornings, good nights, video calls that stretch longer than planned. She laughs at your jokes, asks about your day, tells you you're different. And after a while, you stop guarding yourself. You think, finally, I picked right. Then you fly in. The airport hug feels electric. The mix of relief and adrenaline, like something just clicked. The first few weeks feel effortless. You're generous. She's grateful. Everything flows. And somewhere in your mind, a quiet belief forms. This is what it's supposed to feel like. But here's the truth. That's not love yet. That's projection. You're not seeing her. You're seeing hope, relief, possibility finally getting oxygen. And she's doing the same thing. To her, you're the stable foreigner, the calm presence, the future that feels possible. Not consciously, not manipulatively, just psychologically. Then, usually around month 3, sometimes 6, sometimes right after moving in together, something shifts. Not dramatically, just enough to unsettle you. She gets quieter, more sensitive, less playful. The tone changes, or the requests feel heavier, less casual, more urgent. A sick relative, a broken roof, school fees, something from back home. And this is where men get it wrong. You tell yourself, she's changed. She was never real. This was a mistake. But here's the correction. She didn't change. Reality arrived. Dr. Taraban's insight here matters. He says relationships don't begin at attraction. They begin at disappointment. Before this moment, you were dating a fantasy, a best foot forward version, a curated image. Now you're meeting a real human being with pressure, family gravity, fear about the future. And for Western men, this moment feels like betrayal because we equate consistency with sincerity. If someone changes, we assume deception. But here, pressure doesn't announce itself. It leaks sideways through obligation, through family duty, through survival math. So when this moment hits, she's not saying, use me. She's saying, I'm scared. And she doesn't say it directly because she was never taught to. This is the fork in the road. Path 1, you panic, you overgive, you rescue, you smooth everything over. You think, if I just handle this, we'll go back to how it was. That feels loving. But it quietly teaches her nervous system that distress brings resources. Path 2, you harden, you interrogate, you pull back, you keep score. That feels strong, but it creates fear. And fear kills attraction as fast as dependence. There is a third path, and almost no one explains it. You hold steady. You don't deny reality, but you don't collapse into it. You say, I see the pressure. I'm not running, but I'm not buying reassurance. That's leadership. The crisis of disappointment is not a test of generosity. It's a test of emotional tolerance. Can you stay calm when she's unsettled? Can you stay warm without surrendering your center? Can you say no without punishment? Because when you pass this moment, something shifts. She relaxes, not because you paid, but because you didn't flinch. You become predictable, stable, safe. And for a woman raised in uncertainty, that steadiness matters. Most men fail right here, not because they're weak, but because nobody told them what this moment actually was. They thought it was the end. It was the beginning. Now we get to the part most men actually get confused about. Because once you survive that earlier moment, once you don't panic, once you don't harden, the question becomes, all right, what actually changes this? And this is where men expect tricks. A sentence, a rule, a boundary you announce. That's not what shifts the dynamic. What changes the outcome is structure. And this is where a lot of good men unknowingly sabotage themselves. Most men who slide into the provider role don't do it because they're foolish. They do it because they dismantled their own structure without realizing it. Think about what happens when you arrive here. You finally slow down. You retire. You step off the treadmill. For the first time in decades, no alarms, no deadlines. At first, that feels incredible. But quietly, something else happens. Your relationship becomes the center of your life. She becomes your schedule, your social life, your emotional anchor. You spend most of your time together. You think you're being romantic. But here's the uncomfortable truth. She experiences it as pressure. Not because she's cold, but because attraction is observed, not explained. Attraction doesn't run on intention. It runs on what she can see. And what she sees is this: a man with no external gravity, no routines, no rhythm, no standing outside the relationship. That doesn't feel romantic. It feels risky. A woman does not want to be your entire ecosystem. She wants to join one. This is where Dr. Taraban's ideas of contextual standing matters. Forget the word alpha. All it really means is this: are you a man with presence where you live? Not globally, locally. Attraction doesn't care who you were 10 years ago. It responds to what people see right now. Here, in Asia, in Thailand, in the Philippines. Status is visible, relational, earned quietly over time. It's the man people recognize, the man whose name doesn't need explaining, the man who shows up without performing. That man doesn't chase affection. He attracts it indirectly. Here's the mistake many expats make. They isolate. They stay inside. They order delivery. They interact with almost no one except their partner. That puts enormous pressure on her, because now, if she's upset, your entire life wobbles. That's not leadership. That's dependence. Let me ground this. Two men, same age, same pension, same country. Man one spends every day with his girlfriend, fixes problems immediately, avoids friction, has no routine. Man two lives modestly, has a daily rhythm, goes to the same cafe, knows people by name, has places he belongs, same money, very different outcome. Which man feels safer? Not more loved. Safer. Because safety isn't wealth. It's predictability, structure, social proof. This is why generosity alone sometimes kills attraction. It removes the need for emotional investment. When everything is handled, she never has to lean in. Here's the quiet shift when structure returns. You stop proving. You stop rushing to fix. You pause. You keep your rhythm. You stay warm without chasing. And slowly, something changes. She starts investing. Not because she owes you, but because she chose you. This is the difference between being useful and being chosen. Now about money. Money isn't the problem. Timing is. When money comes before structure, it becomes emotional glue. When it comes after structure, it becomes support. Same money, completely different nervous system response. A man without structure uses resources to stabilize emotion. A man with structure uses resources to support a life already in motion. That's the difference. This isn't about dominance or control. It's about calm presence. And here's the good news, especially for men in their second chapter. You already have what this requires: patience, experience, emotional range. You just stop trusting it. Once structure returns, this dynamic stabilizes. Affection feels lighter. Requests feel reasonable. And you no longer feel like you're holding everything together. But there's one more test, and it exposes everything. Silence, withdrawal, and the man who doesn't chase. Now we need to talk about the moment that quietly breaks more Western men than money ever does. Silence. Not yelling, not drama, not accusations. Silence. Here it has a name. In the Philippines, we call it tampo. And if you don't understand what's happening here, you will chase it. You will feed it. And without realizing it, you will teach her nervous system that distance creates control. Most men experience it like this. You say no, or you hesitate, or you set a small boundary. Nothing dramatic, nothing cruel. And suddenly, she goes quiet. Short replies, flat tone, no warmth. Your Western brain lights up. What did I do? Is she angry? Is this slipping away? So you respond the way you were trained. You explain. You apologize. You over-clarify. You try to fix the feeling. Sometimes you add a gesture, a gift, a peace offering. It feels loving, but here's the uncomfortable truth. It's anti-attractive because the moment you chase emotional withdrawal, you communicate the one thing very clearly. My stability depends on your mood. That does not feel safe. It feels heavy. Now, let me be very clear. Tampo is not evil. It's a culturally learned way to express disappointment without confrontation. It's actually about harmony, saving face, avoiding open conflict. But here's what Western men miss. It's also a test. Not a cruel test, not a conscious one, a nervous system test. She's asking, without words, does this man collapse? Does he get angry? Does he try to buy the moment back? Or does he stay steady? Most men fail here, not because they're weak, but because silence triggers old wounds, especially for men who've lived through a divorce. Because silence once meant abandonment. So they over-respond, they chase, they plead, they negotiate closeness, and the dynamic quietly flips. She no longer feels led. She feels responsible, and responsibility kills desire. Here's the counterintuitive truth. The strongest response to silence is not coldness. It's calm continuity. You stay polite. You stay warm. You stay predictable. You don't withdraw your affection, but you also don't negotiate away your center. You don't ask, what's wrong, 5 times. You don't demand reassurance. You don't punish the silence. You let it breathe, because that's what Tampo is, a wave. And waves pass, just like clouds in the sky. You have to breathe and let them pass. When you don't chase, something subtle but powerful happens. Her nervous system relaxes, not because she won, but because she feels space, not pressure. Eventually, she comes back, sometimes softly, sometimes embarrassed, sometimes pretending nothing happened. And this is where many men make their second fatal mistake. They punish, they bring it up, they demand explanations, they reopen the wound that destroys dignity. The correct move is quieter. You accept the return. You don't reward the withdrawal, but you don't shame it either. You simply move forward. That's leadership. Now, let me say one thing here. The first question I asked Chrissy was to rate her Tampo on a scale of 1 to 10. She said 4, and I think she was pretty accurate. And I don't wish for anybody to be involved with a woman who learned how to be a spoiled brat as a child and had her behavior rewarded all through life, and now it's your turn, and you have to fix it or put a tremendous amount of effort into lead the way forward. I encourage you to vet a woman properly, get to know her personality under stress so you can see whether this is somebody that you want to go forward with. And here's the paradox most men never hear. The man who is willing to lose the relationship is the man most likely to keep it. Not because he's cold, but because he's grounded. He doesn't beg for reassurance. He offers presence. And presence creates desire. Once she feels that steadiness, the dynamic changes. Requests become conversations. Silence shortens. Respect stabilizes. This is where the walking wallet dynamic dies. No more ATM. Because money is no longer regulating emotion. Your steadiness is. Most men never learn this. So they keep paying, or keep chasing, or keep hardening. And they tell themselves it's cultural, or unfair, or impossible. It isn't. It's emotional leadership. And leadership doesn't mean control. It means being the calmest person in the room. Now, there's one final truth, and it decides everything. That's what we need to land on next. The deal without the price tag. Let's bring this home. Because if you've stayed with me this far, you already know the answer in the question that brought you here. You can feel it. The quiet realization that something you thought was love might actually be maintenance. Here's the truth most men never say out loud. Every relationship has an exchange. Not a receipt, not a contract, not a spreadsheet, but a balance. And as Dr. Orion Taraban explains, relationships only work when that exchange is covered with dignity. The moment the exchange becomes visible, desire collapses. That's true everywhere, not just in Asia. But in Asia, Thailand, and the Philippines, it's amplified. Because face matters. Respect matters. And how something feels matters more than how it's explained. This is why the man who keeps handling things slowly kills romance. Not because he's wrong, but because he exposes the deal. And once the deal is exposed, attraction has nowhere to hide. Now let me say this plainly. There is no shame in wanting affection, companionship, to feel chosen again. And there is no shame in her wanting security, stability, a future. Those desires are human. The problem begins when we pretend that isn't the exchange. That lie is what turns men into utilities, because when you deny the exchange, you remove structure. And when structure disappears, emotion becomes the regulator. That's when requests feel heavier, silence feels strategic, and generosity starts to feel expensive, not financially, emotionally. That's the moment men say, I think I'm being used. But here's the correction. You weren't used. You became unclear. And ambiguity is where resentment grows. Now, before I land this, if you want a deeper framework, I've made my new book, A Western Man's Guide to Dating in Asia and the Philippines, available as a free PDF through the end of January. I know I said it was only through January 2nd, but now I'm making it available through the end of January. Just write me at flymetothephilippines@gmail.com. It's based on hundreds of real conversations, especially early stage mistakes. You can get it by emailing me at flymetothephilippines@gmail.com. No funnel, no pressure, just clarity. If you're already in something that feels confusing, where you're not sure who you're really dealing with, my wife, Chrissy, also runs a quiet, open source background check service. Just verifying what's real before things get expensive. And if you want to talk this through man to man or big brother and little sister, there's a free 10-minute consultation link in the description and the pinned comment. Now here's the dagger. Boundaries do not kill love. They protect it. A woman does not feel safe when everything is negotiable. She feels safe when direction exists, not control, direction. Routine instead of rescue. Planning instead of panic. Consistency instead of performance. You stop asking permission to be stable. You simply are. And here's the paradox that decides everything. The man who is willing to lose the relationship is the only man who ever gets to keep it. Not because he's cold, but because he's grounded. He doesn't beg for reassurance. He offers presence. And presence creates desire, because desire isn't chaos, it's safety. Stop buying affection. Start being the structure she can rest in. Don't forget to pick up our best-selling travel guide on Amazon, #1 for 10 months in the Philippines travel bestseller category, Fly Me to the Philippines. I'll see you in the next one. Chrissy will be back.